Hey everybody, and welcome to a preview of our next live ramp test. That's going to be on Tuesday, June 9th at 1 p.m. Pacific. That's 9 p.m. Central European time. We're going to be putting our training to the test and really kind of, I guess, our life to the test, see what it's given us. And it's going to be a blast. And we hope that you guys can join us so you guys can cheer us on. It'll really help us all. So we're going to look at what we've done in between the last ramp test to the next ramp test, and then what we expect to get in terms of some sort of a result, because that's a ton of fun. But then also, hopefully it can teach us all how to kind of manage our expectations and understand the fact that the ramp test, more than anything, is a measure of where you're currently at, and it just gives you more accurate training. That's what we're trying to do here, break down those barriers. So let's just get straight into it, and let's go into what we expect.
So I think I'm first on the dock. I was 342, and then this 2 times ago, I was 352, which is the fastest I've ever been. And I was like on pace for 360, doing the most volume ever done. And I imploded hard. So my test after that was 343. I got a 9-watt decrease, which is extremely disappointing, especially when in the middle of the plan, you were going stronger. So talking with Pete and Chad and Amber, I took a little bit easier week and I reduced my volume. To give you an example, for the 2 big weeks, I had 720 TSS outside. And right now I have my 2 big weeks were 530, with 2 of those being outside mountain bike rides, which I feel is, they're just not as tiring on the legs as we've talked about before. TSS isn't equal to everyone. So my heart still feels a little bit weird when I work out. My wife had her head on my chest and she's like, well, your heart rate's so loud and fast. And I'm like, I know. So, but I've also had some good rides. So what
concerning.
I predict, but I've also lost like 4 pounds, which probably I should not be doing either. Nationals got canceled. So it's very exciting to not have something so close. And I said, hey, it's a great opportunity to lose some weight for Dirty Kansas and Nationals. So what I am thinking is my power to weight is going to go up for sure. And I think if I would be happy with a 350 result again. So like a 7-watt increase. That would be pretty cool. And yeah, I think I need to get to, I'm 191 pounds right now. I need to get down to 185 and a 360 ramp test result. Then for Cape Epic, I will be at sea level, 4.5 watts per kilo. And then you better watch out, Amber and Brandon.
Oh man. So I'm down, for me, I'm down 1 pound from where I was, 147 as of this morning, 147.1. So the weight's continuing to tick down to where I needed it to be. But the power from last time, I ended up dropping from 314 down to 296 because of the time I took off with the house. Once again, we talked about this before, but sometimes you think that the little interruptions in your training are littler than they are or have less effect. But taking your ramp test regularly as scheduled in your plan is super helpful, because then you make sure that you aren't training too hard, too easy, something like that. So I didn't think that it would make that big of a deal, but man, I dropped to 296, but the training wasn't overwhelming at all when I came back to it. So that was obviously a nice surprise. I'm kind of stuck. Like, I feel like I'm not getting any faster. I've really only had like 2.5 weeks of consistent training. So I'm like looking through, like trying to analyze everything. Diet's good. I am eating a variety of foods, eating the sort of carbs that I would definitely need to eat before, and I'm fueling during the workouts. I don't know I am losing weight, so maybe I'm underestimating that, and maybe I need to count macros and stuff to kind of figure that out. But that life stress is it's all feels like it's relieved just in the last week, just with all the house stuff more or less being cleared off the plate. Maybe it's allergies. I don't know. Maybe it's heat, right, Nate? I don't know.
Well, John, yeah,
I feel like I'm not getting faster.
Looking at your training, you've been doing outside workouts, which kudos to you, but it's been 90 some degrees in Reno. And I think you've been doing them all like mountain biking, climbing, and the airflow is low, and you've been failing workouts. So those things combined, like I could see how maybe you're not able to hit your marks and progressively overload your system. I don't know, Chad, what do you think?
As far as the heat being a limitation?
Yeah,
that's a distinct possibility. Not to mention it's a little bit sapping trying to train in the heat too, and he is on the rebound, so he's got a bit of work to get back to. I think he'll get back to where he was pretty rapidly, and then how he'll ascend from there. I'm not sure what you're looking at, Jonathan, in terms of what's on your calendar now, other than your own homemade stage race.
Yeah, my own homemade stage race is it. That's all I'm prepping for in early September. So hopefully, I mean, the goal is by the time that comes around to be, really like to be at 325. That would be an ambitious goal, but I think it's possible. So if I can just nail my training and hit my marks, it should be fine. So should be there. On the heat side, it's interesting, Nate, because like you pointed out, I don't feel like I'm too hot during the workouts, but you don't have to feel like that in order for it to affect you, right? Like it can still affect you adversely.
Yeah. I'm looking at your training too, and Amber said this before, but dude, you need to be patient. You're back for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
You've got
you
like 12 workouts in. You're like, I'm not back at 317 after 12 workouts. Like, I don't know. I should just probably change my whole training structure. Like, dude, you're in your third week. So your third week of build. Yeah, but I would, so everyone listening, don't expect a bump in the middle, like 2 weeks into your block. Like, give yourself a 4-week block, get a recovery week in there, and then keep going. And sometimes even that's not enough, and you can adjust from there. But 2 weeks in, don't change. I
think that
this is funny looking at it.
This is me basing it off of prior experience. Usually I from short times off, I see a quick return, right? And usually within 2 weeks for sure. And I definitely don't see myself failing workouts. It's the past 2 days I've failed workouts. So, or took some breaks in the one before, but then today failed a workout. So, or I should say yesterday. So like really it's like to your point, I probably just have to be more patient, but I'm curious to see where I sit on ramp test day. So Pete, how have things gone for you? You had the biggest, you basically just kept going. You didn't stop, you and Amber last time. So
yeah, I had a really good ramp test last time. One of the highest ramp test results I've gotten at altitude pretty much. So I ended up at 361. Previously, I was 343 and then 345 and then up to 361. Either fortunately or unfortunately, I was kind of wonky going into that ramp test. I could tell something wasn't quite right. And so I performed really well. And then I pretty much got a sinus infection directly afterwards. And so from the ramp test day, I didn't train for 15 days, pretty much. I rode mountain bikes very, very light just to get outside and keep from going crazy. But my training effectively halted completely. So then last week I spent a little bit of ramp up period. Like I think I did 250 TSS with no real workouts, just get the blood flowing again. This week I've done a couple workouts and things aren't as bad as I thought they could be. I think so that's why I was sort of laughing at you, John. How many previous times did you have a house selling home construction thing based into that? Yeah. So a whole different time. So for me, I had probably the most consistent 6 months of training I've had in the last couple of years. And it turns out that if you train really consistently for 6 months and you take 2.5 weeks off, you actually don't drop that much. So my numbers look, based on some feelings and pretend magic, I bet I'm 5% down. Or something like that. It kind of depends on how the rest of this week goes. But I effectively put a rest week, but it was sick, so it doesn't really count. So I had to rest after I was sick to come back to life. But luckily, all the events I kind of had penciled in are no longer happening. So there was really no reason to come back early. Like this is like getting sick in November. It doesn't make a difference to come back 5 days earlier and get sick again. So I just waited until I felt 100%, and then I started riding again. And we'll see what happens. I have no idea.
my money's on Pete for biggest drop.
I don't know. He's going to be 350,
sick
I bet
for
also.
15 days is pretty tough.
Yeah. I rode with him yesterday though, and he seemed fine. Like it was supposed to be an easy, he said in Slack it was going to be an easy ride. And I am literally going 400 watts up some of these hills, and he is dropping me. And I'm like, what are we doing, Pete? He didn't have a power meter, but you got to slow down.
Tire choice.
It was a tire choice? You had DHFs on, so you were probably doing even more. I had Aspens. It's crazy. If I look at Pete's too, his previous, where he got his big bump to 360, he's got textbook progression load of TSS, just a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. And then last week, you only did 206 TSS, so not much at all. You're very fresh.
I'm very fresh, and actually it's nice. I feel pretty good. My legs aren't tired. Like usually you live with that kind of fatigue in your legs on a big training plan, and my legs feel really good. It's kind of nice. So I could have better legs on test day because I don't have that residual fatigue just loaded up for months after months after months. We'll find out. I'm going to guess 350. That's
350. I didn't throw out a guess for where I was going to be. I should throw that in before we go into anything else. I think I'm going to be somewhere around 305 if everything goes really well. If it continues and I'm still dramatic about my life and everything is falling around me and dying, then in that case, I think I'll probably be just where I'm at right now. It's 296.
So what were you before? Did you say 287 you dropped down or 297?
296.
296.
Yeah, I was 314 then 296. And I think that if I can figure things out or if something changes in the next few days, I'm confident I'll be back to around 306.
So you're going to get what are you complaining about? Like a 9-watt bump and you're like, oh, it's not working?
No, if things have to change. If that doesn't change, then I'm going to be 296 at best because right now I'm failing workouts. So
I got you.
Yeah, we'll see. Okay, Chad, how about you? How's your training been?
Well, so I don't think it's a secret to anybody that I kind of lost faith in anything on the race calendar happening. I mean, I saw quite a while back that the writing was on the wall. It wasn't realistic that Nationals was going to get rescheduled for its slated time, whether or not it was going to get rescheduled at all. Again, I didn't have much faith in that. So I haven't been all that motivated to train solely on the bike. And I'm still basically maintaining that same mixed composition of running, lifting, and riding a little bit. And even that has trimmed because now we're kind of working in the yard and that's taken its own little toll too. So it's been a shift towards sprint intensity training. And those are ridiculously hard, but very short and very low TSS rides. So my 6-week average is it's way down there. But to be fair, I mean, I do have a goal now. Yeah, it's way down. I have a goal, which is obviously Cape Epic, but Cape Epic's still 40 weeks out. And I don't see the point in mustering any motivation any sooner than about 36 weeks out, because 36 weeks allows me to go through an entire base build specialty cycle and pads an extra 8 weeks for additional base work that I'm going to put in there somewhere. So really my training in earnest doesn't begin until the next ramp test 4 weeks from now.
Looking at Chad's training, you are consistently low, but you are consistent. Like he doesn't miss a workout. It's like, that. Yeah. Which in your goal is to maintenance right now and then do running and lifting. So you have a different objective than us, but you are true to your objective.
Yes. And so if my FTP, which, the first go around, we're at 295 and then I slipped a little bit to 290. So let's just call it the same thing. And then down to 283. So I'm on a bit of a decline. So if I could come in at right around 280, I'd be pretty happy. And clearly maintenance will be doing its trick. Otherwise, it'll just be slightly discouraging heading into my first week of that 36 weeks of training.
You just have more opportunity for a bigger increase.
That's true. Yeah.
And what's happening with your weight, with the weightlifting and running? Because
I know it's going up. I know I'm probably closer to 190 pounds instead of 185 pounds. But one of my intentions with I wrote it down even, I think first 3 months, I plan to ditch 5 kilograms over that 3 months as I get into it. And that's going to be when I'm leaning heavily on the base end of things. And I'm going to need that. That's the only way I'm going to be even close to Pete's strength to weight ratio. So either he's going to drop me on every climb or have to weight up for me, or I'm going to have to shed a little bit of weight because I'm not going to be able to push my FTP as high as his.
So what weight in pounds is your goal for like start line at Cape Epic?
180, just 180. I'm not unrealistic. I'm not looking to get down to some bantam 165 or 170 like I could do way back, pretty unhealthily, I might add. But I think 180 is a happy balance with, and it's mountain biking too. Yes, the weight will impact the climbing, but by and large, there's a lot of flat terrain on Cape Epic. A lot of stuff that favors power riders. Please tell me I'm right on that.
Nope. Okay. Well, I'm going to go down.
170 it is. All right.
185 for me or lower. Yeah, it's no. There is some because it's so long, but I would not call it a lot. I would call the biggest climbing days you've ever done in your life 7 days in a row.
Not to put it dramatically.
That's true though. And on the steepest hills, like in the heat. Sorry, everyone.
Yeah, but the heat's basically
awesome.
our summer, right? I mean, we're basically a
it's our summer
latitude equivalent. Yeah.
Yep.
I agree with Chad. I think that there's a lot of flat considering the distance and the amount of climbing. That I agree with Chad. There is some value to not losing 5 more pounds and being blown away on the flats. Nate and I disagree on this one, but since it's you and I, Chad, we can follow blindly into this.
He and I talked about this yesterday, that if we are on the flats and you're in a group, you're competitive, you're in a group, like you're in a group, you're in a peloton. So at least this is based on the pictures I've seen. So I said, Pete, if you want to, you can pull the whole peloton, or if not, just like get in and save your watts and get some draft. And then on the climb, separate out to an even smaller group and smaller group. So I would not be coming in being like, I'm going to be a 200-pound 400-watt rider. I'd rather be a 185, 360-watt rider and do better on the climbs.
I think what Nate really said was, Pete, I want you to pull me and Sophia to get away from Amber and Brandon.
Yeah, that's what he's really hoping for. Or catch up to you and Brandon, to you and Amber. One of the two. Speaking of Brandon, how has your training been going?
Yeah, so last time I went from 321 to 322, a 1 watt increase. I did lose a pound though, so it's a little bit more of an increase, I suppose. I've lost another pound since then, so I'm nice and small. This last training block, I focused a little bit more on like long VO2 max stuff. Coming into that, I was doing short power build because all of my training was leading up to mountain bike nationals, which all indications are that's probably not going to happen.
Yeah, who knows, right?
So my focus has kind of switched more to trying to PR on a local climb here. That's been kind of like that's a lifetime goal of mine, to go sub 30 up Geiger grade here. And so yeah, I've been doing long VO2 max efforts, been doing those successfully, and we'll see what happens.
You think you're going to go up or you're going to go down?
What's that?
Oh, you think you're going to go up or down?
Well, I hope I'll go up. If I were to put a number on it, I'd say maybe I could probably get up to 325. But nice. Overall, the goal would be to do 340 for a 30-minute climb.
Ooh, check that
Brandon, 2 things. 1, what is your TrainerRoad username so I can look you up?
It's Need for Speed.
Brandon has the highest.
I had to get that out there.
You knew it anyway. You're just like, oh my god.
Because his last name's Need.
Yeah. So Brandon has the highest 6-week average, or weekly average, and 6-week daily average out of all of us, which is common, and we usually see that 645 and then 92 for the daily average over 6 weeks.
Oh, it's 94 now because I think he worked out again.
I'm looking at it right now. Out right before
no, it's 92. That was last week. Brandon, as our resident climber, for people under sub 30 on Geiger, who else has done it?
So that has been the number 1 guy is Lorenz Tendam. So World Tour climber, super fast. There is Jesse Miller-Smith, was known as another big-time climber. And
insanely good climber. Yeah.
And Paul Mock, another solid climber, and then David Greif is the other one that's gone sub 30.
Bobby Jillick's done it too.
Bobby, yeah. In the pre-Strava era, I think Greg LeMond used to be like one of his testing climbs, and I think if he was going sub 30, then he knew he was in shape for the tour.
And Greg LeMond grew up in Reno, for those who don't know. He was going sub 30 in his teens, I think, which is crazy.
Yeah. On old stuff, not aero, not anything else. And this climb is like where that matters too, you know? So it's totally changed. Now, Amber, you were like, you didn't stop. You just like kept going even more so than Pete last time. And your training actually, I had this thing in my mind that you weren't training that much. You're training more than I am. So you have higher 6-week daily average and weekly average than I do. How's your training coming? Do you think you're going to be going up, down? Where are you at?
I hope I'll go up. I think I'll probably go up. I'm in really uncharted territory right now because I took like a really, really long, very significant break, bigger break than I've ever taken, probably, well, for sure, is the longest break I'd ever taken in my cycling career. So usually when I come back from just a regular off season, my absolute power is fine, but then it's just sort of like building out each energy system specifically. And I noticed that even before the last ramp test, I was not training consistently. It was just sort of riding when I felt like it. And that's still going to be a big component of my training going forward. I want to build up towards Cape Epic, but, really continue to maintain like a good, healthy mindset with all of this, and still continue to try to be my own best ally on the bike, which is really hard for me. That's like a big challenge, is to have my headspace be a nice place to be. So I'm really, really working on that. And so I was really giving myself a lot of time to come back to training. And then before the last ramp test, so I did some, which was still more than I'd been doing. So I think that gave me a bump last time. But now what I'm doing is I'm not focusing on like getting super fit, but my main focus is just getting back into a rhythm of training that feels good. So looking for consistency in whatever form that is. And that's going to kind of set the tone for building up to Cape Epic, just getting into that nice rhythm again. Cause I find there's kind of an inertia with that, right? Like when you get in a good rhythm, it feels good and you just keep wanting to keep it going. So initiating some of that momentum. And then my other goal has just been to start bringing up my baseline absolute power, because it's quite a bit lower than it would normally be coming off from like a regular off season. So I want to bring my baseline power up before I really start doing any targeted training for Cape Epic. And then that way, if I'm doing a base phase, my base phase power that I'm going to be training will be higher than, so right now I just did the first part of mid-volume general build and mixing in indoor outdoor rides. Again, trying to keep a really positive headspace. So I think the consistency will probably pay off. I would guess I'd be able to hit at least 250. But I really don't know. That's the kind of the fun thing about this, is like, I have no idea how my body's going to respond to this right now, because I've never done anything like this before. So I'm just excited to see what happens.
I'm going to call 260 because I'm looking at your workouts, and you've got a nice little progression up, and you're hitting really hard workouts. Looks like without issue.
Oh, it's so easy. I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
Oh, dang.
You're doing, just so everyone like to hear, these names: Wright Peak -6, Fang Mountain +1, Baird +6, Williamson
Hard.
+2, Avalanche Spire +1, Junction -1. She nailed all of those. Those are some of the hardest workouts we have, and you nailed them all. So if you get a 4-watt increase only, I'd be very surprised.
Yeah.
But,
well,
yeah.
I mean, it's not linear either, right? So I'm not sure, like I'll say these workouts have been really, really hard for me. So I've definitely had more than one workout in the last few weeks where I really think I'm not going to make it past the first interval. And then I do exactly as Coach Chad says. I'm like, okay, just this interval. And then that gets done. I'm like, well, I'm not dead yet. Okay. Just this interval. Oh, still not dead yet. Okay. So it's been hard. So I don't know how well my body's adapting to this right now, because this will be a significant increase. And I have a recovery week this week, and I've been allowing myself to be really flexible as far as like not nailing every single recovery ride, and just giving myself kind of a free pass to take days off if I want to. So that might, I don't know. It'll be really interesting to see how all of this stacks up toward the ramp test.
You sound really kind to yourself for being an ex-pro. Like, I feel like pros
I'm working really hard on this.
She's in the reform period.
That's
yeah,
right.
because I feel like pros are not very kind on themselves when they are professional.
Mm-mm.
Is that true?
Yeah, and I think it's a shame. Honestly, I think a lot of athletes, and this goes for non-athletes too, confuse being tough with self-abuse and having really abusive internal language. And I think that works to an extent. Like, we can be really hard on ourselves, and that can be our drive, and that can give us some improvement. but I really don't believe, and I know for myself in my own experience, like that's not what brings out the best in me. So coming from a place of positivity, coming from a place of enthusiasm and curiosity, those are the times that I perform my best. But I think that especially in the culture of sport, there's a reward system that, like, if you can be the athlete that can handle an abusive, like a coach's abusive verbal language, you get rewarded for that. Like, oh, so-and-so is really tough. Like they can handle when that coach yells at them or whatever. And then we internalize that, right? Because we have authority figures and people that we respect in the sport who use abusive language to quote unquote motivate us. And then we internalize that and think that that's what it means to be driven. That's what it means to be tough. And then when it works and you're rewarded for it, you start to fear what would happen if you don't have that, right? Like what would happen if I was actually nice to myself? Like, would that mean that I'm complacent? Would I lose my drive? Would I lose my ambition? And the truth is you don't, but it's really hard to let go because it's really scary because you're not really sure what the other side of that looks like. So I'm trying really, really hard to be mindful of that. And I think that a truer definition of toughness is being resilient, being able to lean into challenge and then lean back out again when you need to. And that allows you, just the same way as leaning into training stress and then coming back to some recovery, it allows you to assimilate that in a really constructive way. So yeah, I think it's something that a lot of people, pros and non-pros alike, could benefit from trying and experimenting with. But I will say it is not easy.
All right, so we're going to be doing this ramp test on Tuesday, June 9th at 1 p.m. Pacific, not Monday, but Tuesday this time. So that's 9 p.m. your Central European time as well, if you're over the pond and you want to check it out. And let us know who you are going to put your money on for the biggest increase, biggest decrease, all that stuff. I'm curious to see where we go. I'm like hoping that down in the comments, drop it down below. Let us know.
I was trying to point towards Amber, but I can't really.
Okay, got it. Yeah, that too. I'm hoping that somehow maybe Pete, you mentioned Magic. I've never known Magic to have any input into training before, but I'll run on that and maybe something changes. And then I can see an increase in the next couple of days. But it's going to be a blast. Come cheer us on and help us out because we're going to need it, all the help we can get to get the most out of ourselves so we can get the best training. So thanks, everybody.